Good morning, everyone. It's hard to believe a full week has passed since last Friday when we made the very difficult decision to shut the doors of our beloved shul, our sacred shul, our shul, which is the anchor of our entire community and our spiritual lives, our communal lives. Now that I think about it, as I reflect a little bit back on last Friday, I knew in my heart of hearts at the time that it was the right thing to do, that it was the necessary thing to do. I knew in my heart of hearts that we really had no choice. But I also knew in my heart of hearts the weightiness of that decision, of saying that we would no longer have tefillah b'tzibur, no longer have a place of communal gatherings, no longer be able to hear the sounds of Kaddish, of Kedusha, of Baruch Hu, of Kriyas HaTorah, of all of the wonderful things that nourish our soul, no longer be able to sit together around the table and study Torah. I understood the weightiness of the decision. I understood what the ripple effect of the decision could very well be as it would go long into the future. I think now, self-reflecting, that in the moment, as a defense mechanism, I think I tried to think about that moment alone. I tried not to think about the ripple effect, not to think about the long-term effect, not to think about how long this reality could last, but simply to think, okay, we're shutting for this Shabbos. Sunday, who knows? We'll reevaluate, we'll rethink, we might open again, who knows? I knew in my heart of hearts that wouldn't be the case, but as a defense mechanism to try to make that moment just a little bit easier to take, I think I did that. Now, 1 week later, of course, for all of us, the reality has absolutely set in. The full weight of the reality has actually set in. We have gone through so much this week. We have witnessed so much this week. We have all become changed individuals in a changed world this week. Every day that passes, that reality changes so quickly. Every day that passes, we learn new things about this virus that we didn't know before, and they're not always good things, but things that can challenge us even further. Every day that passes, we learn of the gravity of the situation in various places around the world and various places in our own country. Every day that passes, we learn about new patients diagnosed with the virus, patients that we are close to, that we know, that we love, that we think about, that we daven for every day. Every day that passes, we are shocked with the reality of how the entire world is facing this challenge in some ways together. It's unprecedented. We've never faced something like this in our lives or in recent memory. And I think as the full weight of that situation sets in, it becomes even more uncertain and a little bit more scary. We all feel a little bit vulnerable in these moments. I'd like to enter this Shabbos not with the feeling of vulnerability and the feelings of uncertainty that we've been grappling with all week, but with some thoughts of Torah that perhaps can frame this Shabbos that we're about to enter. Last week and Sunday, as we began our series of Zoom Shiurim online and Divrei Torah, I started last Sunday morning with a thought from the Orach Chaim in the beginning of the Parsha. The Pasuk says in the beginning of the Parsha, Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe gathered the Jewish people in order to teach them the laws of Shabbos, in order to teach them how to construct the Mishkan. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh points out that it's not every day when Moshe Rabbeinu teaches that he uses the word Vayakhel, that he purposefully gathers the Jewish people or calls upon them to be gathered in that moment. After all, normally he just teaches them. He starts to talk, he teaches, people listen, they gather on their own. What was the necessity for focusing on Vayakhel, on gathering them in together? Orach Chaim HaKadosh so beautifully points out that it's because of the juxtaposition to the last story in the end of last week's Parsha, of Parshas Kisisa. After the Chet HaEgel, after Moshe Rabbeinu returns to the Jewish people on Yom Kippur, it says, Ki karan or panav, his face was aglow, as we know. However, the people were afraid of the glow of his face. Vayiru migeshet elav, the Pasuk says. They were afraid to approach him. And therefore, because of that fear, Moshe Rabbeinu had to be Vayakhel. He had to gather them together purposefully and consciously to break down those barriers, to break down that fear. We started the week thinking to ourselves, how will we enter this reality of social distancing? Vayiru migeshet elav, as we are afraid to physically approach one another, and therefore we had to be Vayakhel. We had to find new and purposeful and creative ways to try to gather together, not physically gather together, but gathered together on opposite sides of the road, social distancing, waving to each other and saying hello, gathering together on Zoom, on the internet, on the phone, in all kinds of ways. We had to be the Vayakhel as the response to Vayiru Migeshet Elav in this new reality that we face. And boy, have we done so. We have done so with flying colors in the most amazing ways, creating opportunities to be together throughout this Eis Tzara, throughout this difficult time. Just as I began the week with an Orach Chaim, I'd like to end the week now, as we enter Shabbos, with another Orach Chaim that can perhaps frame the experience of this Shabbos for us. And this is an Orach Chaim not from the beginning of the Parsha, but it's an Orach Chaim from the second aliyah of the parsha, the first of the double parshios, the Parshas Vayakhel. We know that earlier in the parsha and later in the parsha, the term nediv lev, generosity of spirit, is used to describe the way in which Bnei Israel brought all of the donations for the Melechas HaMishkan, for the construction of the Mishkan and the vestments of the Kohanim. But the very first pasuk, after Moshe commands the entire Jewish people to start bringing the materials and donating them, has a different expression than nediv lev. It has two expressions. Vayavo kol ish asher nisa'o libo v'chol asher nadva rucho. The people came, kol ish, every person, asher nisa'o libo, whose heart was lifted, and asher nadva rucho, and whose spirit was driving them to give, to donate. So there's two expressions here that are not exactly like nediv lev. It's nisa'o libo and nadva rucho. So Orach Chaim Hachodesh over here on this pasuk explains that what the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, was pointing out to us is that really in life, there are three kinds of doers. There are three kinds of givers. There's the begrudging giver, the person who does what they have to do, but they don't really want to be doing it. It's the person who gives out of obligation, who gives out of a sense of guilt, who gives in order to be yotze, to fulfill their obligation, but without a real sense of generosity of spirit, without a real sense of desire to be part of the project. They're the begrudging givers. That's the basic obligation level giver. That's level number one. But above that, there are two other levels of people who give. The second level is nadva rucho, a person whose spirit caused them to donate. And that in the Lashon, the language of the Orach Chaim, is hamisnadev beratzon nafsho, a person who very willingly gives, kefi yocholto ve'erech mamon, according to their means financially. They give what they can. They give really happily, really generously, out of the total generosity of their spirit and the excitement that they have to give. That's nadva rucho. But there's a third level of a giver as well, which this pasuk is pointing to, not nediv lev, not nadva rucho, but something above that called nisa'o libo, a person whose heart was lifted. And that, says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, is hamisnadev yoter mi'acholto. That's a person who gives not just with a desire, kefi yacholto, according to their means, but a person who gives above and beyond their means, migodol tovius libo, out of the greatness of the goodness of their heart. Their heart is so overwhelming and overflowing with goodness that they just want to reach higher and higher and give more and more and go above and beyond any capacity that they have, not just financially, but in terms of their own generosity of spirit, in terms of their own emotion, in terms of their own desire to connect to some larger project outside of themselves. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, when it comes to the case of the Mishkan and the donations that were given by Bnei Israel, there was no level one giver. There was no begrudging giver. Every giver to the Melechas HaMishkan was either nadva rucho or nisa'o libo. They either gave happily and willingly, according to their means, or they gave above and beyond. They went above and beyond their means, above and beyond their capacity because of the overflowing nature of their heart. This week, as challenging as it was, and it was challenging on every single level. It was challenging on a relationship level with friends and with family and people in close proximity. It was challenging on an emotional level. It's been challenging on a financial level for so many people around us. It was challenging on a health level. It was challenging on a physical level, just being constrained to our homes and out of our realities and out of our normal routines. It was challenging in every single way for people all around us. And yet, this week, we saw all around us that no one was a level one giver. No one went above, no one went out of themselves begrudgingly. Everyone, just like in the case of Melechus HaMishkan, was either a Nadvar Rucho or an Esau Libo, either gave happily according to their means or even went above and beyond. And I would venture to say that I am so incredibly proud of the people here in our shul and in our community. I would say every one of them was not just a Nadva Rucho, but every one of them was a Nisa'o Libo. Every one of them has gone above and beyond in the most incredible ways, and I am so proud to live here, to be a member of this community, and to be the rabbi of this community, which is absolutely tremendous. The other night, I literally was sitting at my dining room table here in front of my Sfarim, my computer, my new kind of makeshift office here in the home, and I started to cry. I really was overwhelmed by emotion as all the small task forces in our shul started to form and to coalesce and to work on things and generate ideas and help. And the Chesed group started coming up with ideas of people to go shopping for others, people to get prescriptions for others, people to navigate the medical system and get medical appointments for others, people to give tech help to those who couldn't get on all these Zoom calls and conference calls, and putting together a buddy system to match people in the shul and make sure that no one is left behind and that no one is forgotten and that we are in this absolutely together. To see how the mental health professionals in our shul banded together to come up with resources and ideas, and they're planning seminars for us and how to grapple with the complexity of our situation. They've come up with a list of people willing to be there for us as a listening ear to help. If any of us are facing challenging times, we'll direct you to the right person in the mental health profession. Volunteers from members of our shul who are willing to be there in order to listen. I've seen all week long how people have gone above and beyond willingly and generously in exactly the Nisa'o Libo fashion in order to help each other and to show their kindness, and it is astounding. I am so proud of how kind people have been. I'm so proud, by the way, of how so many people in our community are trying very, very hard to adhere to social distancing rules that will literally help us and save lives, and we should only continue in that effort to do that, as hard as it is. I'm so proud of how many people have stepped up financially to give so generously to our Ma'oschitim campaign and to our coronavirus relief fund for the many people who unfortunately in the coming days will have growing needs. So proud of how people have stepped up to hope and to help our local establishments, our kosher establishments, to keep themselves running and to keep themselves going. So proud of our establishments for the tremendous job that all of them are doing. I'm so proud of people who have formed all these different chat groups and WhatsApp groups and just coffee groups and knitting groups and minion groups just to talk to each other and to be there with each other. How we've had so many shiurim on Zoom this week and so many divrei Torah and Tehillim and mindfulness seminars and challah baking, and tomorrow we'll have cholent making, and next week we're going to have an amazing concert by Eitan Katz, a live concert with Eitan Katz trying to help us to lift our spirits in these difficult times. It's really a tremendous thing. I'm so proud not only of our shul and of our local community, but of our people around the world, the Jewish people, Mikam Israel. On a personal level, I know I was really been moved all week in my own rabbinic circles to see how we've banded together on our rabbinic WhatsApp group, sharing ideas and sharing texts and sharing insights and sharing information and sharing approaches and just sharing emotion with each other in astounding ways. The poskim, our greatest rabbis of our community, have also banded together to be there for local rabbis, for shul rabbis, to answer complex questions which we really have never faced before, new questions that are coming up this year for the very first time, whether it be about minyan or about mikvah or about birchas hagomel or about Pesach and all kinds of ways. It is absolutely inspiring to see how available they have made themselves to me and to my other rabbinic colleagues, to see how they have stepped forward to really lead the charge in so many ways in terms of our halachic lifestyle at this very challenging time. And I'm not only proud of ourselves, of our community, of our shul, of the larger Jewish community, of the state of Israel, but of the world as a whole, really coming together in significant ways in these troubling times to try to help each other. As hard and as challenging as this time is, as heartbreaking as it is to watch people around the world suffering and becoming ill, and as much as we face uncertainty in these times, I think it's also afforded us the opportunity to see the best in people, to bring out the best in people in very special ways. I want to end not just by reflecting on the difficulty of the week and the difficulty of Vayiru Migeshet Elav that we started with, and of the beauty of the week and the goodness that it's brought out in people who have risen to the level not just of Nadvarucho, but also Nisa Olivo, as the Orach Chaim says, just like in the case of the Melechas HaMishkan, building the Mishkan together. Maybe we're not in our physical structure of our Mikdash Me'at, of our Mishkan, but we are building the Mishkan just as the Jews did in the desert in the second year of Yetzias Mitzrayim, because we are tapping into our Nisa Olivo, our deepest desire to be good and to act good and to manifest our goodness and our potential for goodness in this world. I want to end just with a very jarring thought, which I think perhaps can frame our approach to this Shabbos. One last thought for this small short video, Drasha, Shir, whatever you want to call it, reflections on our week. And that is at the end of the double Parsha, the end of Parshas Pekudei, when the Mishkan is finally erected on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, inaugurated on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which we will celebrate the anniversary of that date this week. As we approach Rosh Chodesh this week, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we should reflect on the fact that not only is Pesach 2 weeks away, but that is the anniversary of the Hakamas HaMishkan. And we should tap into that day as a day of building of Mishkan, of inaugurating Mishkan, with the hope that we can re-inaugurate our Mikdash Me'at, our Mishkan here in Kamel, in KMS, as soon as possible. But that's not always possible, to inaugurate a Mishkan, inaugurate a Mikdash Me'at, and go in and enjoy it immediately. Sometimes there is a barrier, and there was a barrier even in that initial moment. In the most astounding pasuk, the Torah tells us, Vayichas he'anan es oel moed uchvod Hashem maleas hamishkan, that finally the Shechina rested upon the Mishkan, but velo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed. But in that moment, Moshe could not enter the Ohel Moed. They had inaugurated this incredible structure of a Mishkan with the hope that Hashem would descend upon it, and He did. And they were excited and enthusiastic and ready to tap into that Kedusha. Velo yachol Moshe lavo el Ohel Moed. Moshe could not enter the Ohel Moed. It's a small pasuk that we skip over, but it hit me this week. Moshe stood watching his Mishkan, his Ohel Moed, unable to enter. Now, of course, he was unable to enter because he was overwhelmed by the Kedusha of the Shechina. When the Shechina was there, he was not able to go in. So he had his own reason for not entering. But the pasuk hit me, and I said, wow. Moshe stood on the outside of his Mishkan, unable to enter. And now we, so many thousands of years later, stand on the outside of our Mishkan, our Mikdash Me'at, unable to enter, albeit for different reasons. But it was jarring to Moshe as much as it is jarring to us. And that image is one that I know I will hold on to this whole Shabbos. The image that we are not the first to face this reality. For various reasons, over the course of time, over the course of history, there have been moments when we have been forced to watch our place of Kedusha from a distance, and to try harder in the Nisa Olivo fashion to go above and beyond, to tap into that Kedusha that we see from a distance and bring it into our lives, bring it into our homes, bring it into our Shabbos. And that's exactly what we're charged to do at this moment. To imagine ourselves like Moshe Rabbeinu, viewing the Kedusha from the outside, wondering when he would be able to enter, wondering how he can take that Kedusha and bring it to the outside, to the reality that he faced as well. May we be zocha to greater and greater levels of holiness, of community, of connection to each other and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this sacred Shabbos ahead. May it be a healthy Shabbos, a happy Shabbos, a wonderful Shabbos that we get to share, even from a distance, with each other. And may we be zocha to enter our Mikdash Me'at, our Mishkan, very, very soon. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.